Hi everyone, welcome to Digital Charcuterie. My name is James Razile and it's Thursday, which means it's my favorite day of the week. It's time for Teenage Mutant Ninja Thursday. Today, I'm joined with Andrew Fantasia to talk the backlash surrounding the rise of the TMNT. We're going to talk a little bit about Baron Draxum, John Cena's new character, which was just revealed last week. And we're going to talk about a fifth Ninja Turtle, but not the fifth Ninja Turtle you're thinking about. We get all that and more on this week's Teenage Mutant Ninja Thursday. All right, guys, I'm joined with Andrew Fantasia once again. Andrew, thanks a lot for coming on Digital Charcuterie's Teenage Mutant Ninja Thursday.
Thank you for having me. I think we're going to have a shell of a good time.
All right, Andrew will never be back on this program ever again. Last time you were here, we talked about Raphael being the leader and the new look of the Turtles. Last week, they revealed John Cena's character, Baron Draxum. I got to know your thoughts on the reveal of this guy. You actually did a video talking about him a little bit on your channel, but tell me your initial thoughts on Baron Draxum for Rise of the TMNT.
He doesn't look like what I expected. I was actually expecting a human, so that kind of freaked me out, but I think it's cool. He's got this praying mantis look to him. He's very buggy. He looks like, obviously, you know, this goes without saying when it comes to turtles, but he looks like a toy. Like, I want that toy. And now I'm just excited to see what he does with this ooze that he's supposedly obsessed with, if he's going to be splattering ooze on a bunch of people and seeing what happens. I mean, meat sweats is a thing, so you don't get meat sweats without a little bit of ooze. So I want to see him really, you know, go crazy with that. And if that's how he really looks, if he's like an something, I want to see what happens when ooze lands on an alien, because we've seen it land on humans and earth animals, but what happens when you throw that stuff on something that's not of this earth? Is it gonna, you know, be gargantuan? Is it gonna turn into like Godzilla? Like, what's gonna happen? And if he's obsessed with ooze, I think the chances of us seeing that are very, very good.
Yeah, I'm really curious because he lives on the underbelly of Earth. He's below the sewers of Earth. It's kind of a like a middle world kind of. It reminds me of the old 60s. It was a 60s Spider-Man. We discovered a world underneath the city of New York. There was a world underneath there, and I think he fought the Incredible Hulk there. I saw this year. This is like 1982. I saw this, so this was like years and years ago. That's why I can't wait for Baron Draxum. But I've been, you know, doing this show. I research a lot of Ninja Turtle stuff now, trying to stay hip with what the kids are paying attention to. And there is some massive backlash coming towards the rise of the TMNT specifically. The rise of the TMNT, people seem to hate. Now, we could talk about the backlash that hit the Michael Bay films, obviously, because that was something else. And I got to say that the Injustice game, have you seen the Injustice Turtles?
No, I have not.
You got to buy Injustice 2.
I've seen very little of Injustice, period.
You should. So the Ninja Turtles are in Injustice 2 now. They were a DLC, February 13th for like season pass holders, and February 20 something for everybody else. You get to do it's like $13 in Canada, $10 in the States. You get to buy your 4 turtle package. They look fantastic. They are the Ninja Turtles that should have been in the Bay. They look like the Bay Turtles, like realistic, but like classic Ninja Turtles. It's a realistic approach to them. There's no nostrils. There's no BS. It is what it is. They look great. I was really, really impressed and getting my hands on that one. But we got to talk to Backlash, Rise of the TMNT. We talked about it a couple weeks ago. I liked the idea. I was thrilled with the idea that the Turtles, the brothers, were all going to be a different species of turtle. I thought that was really, really cool, and I think you were on board with that as well, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like that. I like the whole, you know, starting off with Raph as the leader. Whether or not that sticks, we don't know yet. But I like the idea of the Turtles shaking things up, because as many iterations of it that we have, you said in the last time I was on the show, you mentioned that every iteration of the Turtles has something that sticks when they move on to the next one. But the things that stick are never really the big changes. They're usually just like small things, like a new villain or a new like location, what have you. And I think it's time for a change to really become a big part of it. Like I've been watching the early 2000s Ninja Turtles cartoon, which I've never seen before. And I've been going through that. I'm on like season 3 now, and it's actually very good. It's better than I thought it was. But I'm amazed at how closely it follows the 1980s comics. Like, obviously more so than the 80s cartoon. Like, this show, there's a point where it's almost word for word the original Mirage comic book. And, there's very little room. There's not a lot of wiggle room in there. And, they tried stuff like adding a girl turtle. They tried stuff like making them, like bigger and different sizes and whatnot. But I think a change in the story is what we need. And this whole Raph thing is definitely, a good start.
Yeah, and it's quoted as he is the self-proclaimed leader of the TMNT. The thing I don't get is with change is everyone says change is good, blah blah blah, and then the minute you do change, everyone has a freak out and they're like, "What are you doing to my turtles?" It's the comfort level more than anything. You're taking them away from the comfort. Now, the overall design of them, like I said before, it reminded me of Teen Titans Go, which is what my 10-year-old niece is obsessed with, which is what I feel the demographic of this show. Nickelodeon wants to hit that demographic with this show. We, like the adults, we get Injustice 2 Ninja Turtles, and the 10-year-olds, they get Rise of the TMNT. So I can understand how like some adults would look at that aspect of it and say, this looks like trash. I can't believe they would design the turtles like that. Because I find that to be closed-minded, though. Like, we're thinking, if you were a fan, I mean, there was only probably like 100 of them back then, but, well, not really, but the original comic book run of the Turtles, the black and white comic book run of the Turtles, if they were to have seen, and now I recognize we're in a different era, but if they were to have seen the cartoon series, they would have been disgusted with what they saw there.
Yeah, because it was so, it was kidified sort of to the max. I mean, that cartoon series was a comedy. It like, first and foremost, every character was just a big goofball, and it was just about cracking jokes, and it was fun, but it was, as, they took it to as light a place as they could take it without it becoming like Care Bears. I mean, they even revamped Raphael's character entirely. And that was my, that cartoon is my first gateway drug into Turtles. So for the longest time, until, I saw that first movie, Raphael, to me, has, and always in my mind, he always is, the sarcastic guy who's voiced by Rob Paulson. He's not, hey, I'm Raphael and I'm the mad one. To me, that's always like the second Raphael, even though that's not the case. So, there's kids growing up with this new Teen Titans look who, to them, that's their gateway drug. So to them, Turtles is always going to look like that. And then when you throw something at them like the Michael Bay movies, they're like, whoa, that's different. That, that's too realistic. So there's always that, the first comes along and steals your heart, and then everything after that is just after that. But I don't necessarily think change is a bad thing if it comes in a way that gives us Turtles like we've never seen before.
Yeah, I think the main difference with what I was saying, what you're talking about, is when we got the Turtles in the 80s with that cartoon, that was the second iteration of the Turtles. Like, there was a comic book that, a few, because it was still like, it was making waves, but it wasn't making Superman, Batman waves yet, right? And then we have the cartoon, and for kids, we don't even know that comic exists. But now, 30 years later, this comes out, and everybody knows what came before it. It wasn't like it was this and then the 80s cartoon. It's not like there's been a 30-year gap. There's been Turtles all throughout, and Turtles: The Next Mutation, the greatest TV show ever made. Gosh, have you seen that show yet?
I watched a couple on Netflix. Yeah, it's not pretty.
I can't. That's where was the backlash? Was there backlash for that? Because that was in the 90s, before the internet took over. We didn't have vocal. I remember seeing it when I was, I would have been a teenager at the time, and just like, this is, and I still love Turtles, don't get me wrong. I was like, this is dumb, and everything about it looked dumb. It was very much like the rock show that they did, where the Turtles went on tour and like played instruments and sang it. That's what it looked like, and it's hard to believe how bad they pulled that one, like how bad that one turned out.
And it's weird because it was very much like a Power Rangers show, but it came out Yeah, it was Saban. It's all under their label. But it came out in '97, I think, or '98, right after the cartoon ended, and that's already 5 years after Power Rangers was hitting big. So it's already late to the party that it threw, and it didn't try to improve on the Power Rangers formula at all. It just kind of stuck with it with that very cheesy after school, every movement that the turtles make is accompanied by like a waka waka, like it sounds like a Three Stooges cartoon. It's like they sort of didn't, like Saban, whoever was responsible for it, didn't understand that some time had passed between when Power Rangers was hot and now. But I guess nobody got that memo, and it's sad because I like the idea of a girl turtle being thrown into. I like the idea of them having a sister, and then all of a sudden, like it's like a long lost sister, and things get shaken up. And it's like, oh, where did she come from? Why didn't Splinter tell us about her? Did he know? And how did she get mutated? That's all interesting stuff. That's the kind of change I like to see. But not when it's done like,
No, they butchered it there, and that's why the way I see it is Nickelodeon now owns the Turtles, if I'm not mistaken. They own the Ninja Turtles outright. They know what they have. Turtles has been around, like they've only had, I think, a 5-year gap on TV in between the Next Mutation and the 2002-3 show. I can't get my mind straight right now. But in between that, that's the only time, that 5-6 year gap is the only time the Turtles have never been on TV. Nickelodeon knows that. They're not going to come out right now and make something completely terrible, but they got to change it up. The thing with the Turtles is, yeah, they've been around for 30 years, and for us, like, I think they've transcended just superheroes. They're now on like the Mickey Mouse level of things. You could sell a Ninja Turtle, you could throw a bandana on a turtle, and everyone on the planet's going to say it's a Ninja Turtle. That's it. It's like it went from like fad to wow, like just over the moon awesomeness. And that's how I feel about the Turtles right now. But to Nickelodeon's credit on this is the kids growing up, they might not care about the Turtles. I know that my nieces and nephew actually absolutely love the Ninja Turtles, but I know that my brother-in-law also got them into the Ninja Turtles at a very young age. Like, he was like, you got to watch Ninja Turtles. Are all parents going to do that? Are they going to let their kids find the thing on the shows on their own? And if they do that, how do they find Ninja Turtles? Is that going to be the top of the spectrum? If it doesn't look like, if they're watching Teen Titans Go and they see Ninja Turtles and it doesn't look like that, are they going to want to sit there and watch that Ninja Turtles show? So I think you've got to keep it new and fresh for the young audiences. Let them kind of grow up and mature with the Turtles, and then when they get to their teenage years, they can go into the darker comic books, and then they get older, they can experience the films more, and they can slowly build it, and all of a sudden they're the same as we are, and they just love all aspects of the Ninja Turtles. But it's that entry point that you gave them because it was something fresh and new, but familiar looking to what they had already been watching on television.
Yeah, it's one of those properties that's always updating with the times. Like you hit the nail on the head. Like, there's only that little window of time where it was not a thing, and ever since it's always been a thing. And there's a weird phenomenon with cartoons that I've noticed, and I don't understand where it came from or if there's a purpose behind it. But I'm gonna name off like 5 cartoons from when we were kids. Okay, I'll go with the '80s Turtles cartoon. He-Man, the Spider-Man '90s cartoon, the X-Men '90s cartoon, and let's throw in like Gargoyles. Okay? One thing that all those cartoons have in common is the animation style. The humans look like humans. They're proportioned like humans. Fast forward to like this generation's kids and the cartoons you've got, like Rise of the TMNT, like the Teen Titans Go, that 2D Clone Wars cartoon that came out like back in like '05 or whatever. Everything is angular and weird and artsy looking. It's not proportioned like a human anymore. And I've always been curious, like, when did that shift happen and why? What caused, what made animators stop? Yeah, maybe you're right. That was the first one I remember looking like that. But yeah, there was that point where it's just like, let's stop trying to draw humans looking like humans, and now let's just make it look like a Picasso rendition of a human. And now that's the norm. And it's kind of weird to see that everything has kind of evolved into that, and there was no real rhyme or reason to it as far as I can see. But it's something I've always kind of noticed about cartoons. Have you taken notice of that? Like, is that something you've?
Like, I think it was like the Powerpuff Girls, Dexter's Laboratory, and then there was a shift. It was like a a shift Nickelodeon created. And honestly, it was a style, but I also think it's cheaper to animate. You know, the more box shaped they are than they are, you know, with all the lines, it's easier to animate, cheaper to animate, I should say. And then they can pump up more a year, I would bet. That's my guess on it. And look, and if you're talking about the new Turtles, the 2012 series was CG animated. You know what's cheaper than CG animated? This new Turtles, I'll bet you. This new Turtles is probably a lot cheaper to animate than that one. But this is what kids are watching. I don't know what it is with it. I know the kids are drawn to color. These things are way more colorful than the cartoons you just mentioned. I mean, the Ninja Turtles 80 show, it was pretty colorful, but, you know, Spider-Man the Animated Series, the colors, it's colorful, but it's serious colorful. Like, it's almost like our action movies, but in cartoon form, like kids' action movies in cartoon form.
Yeah.
It felt like. Let's talk quickly about Miss April O'Neil. I haven't read any backlash on her. I'm sure it's out there full throat. It's the first time, full fold is what I'm trying to say. It's the first time ever she has been depicted as African American. I have heard a few people grumbling on it, but you know, people are gonna complain about whatever they can. I had no problem when they announced the voice cast. I had no problem with it. I thought, best person for the job, you get the best person for the job. Now we've seen with Star Wars Rebels where they have David Oyelowo, I'm trying to say his name. He voices a character named Callus who is white. No one seems to have any problem with that. April O'Neil, I thought it was kind of a cool choice that they did. They kept the ethnicity of the voice actor and put it in this character. The only question I have for April O'Neil, and I'll let you talk to that point in a second, but my question on April O'Neil is when I look at her design, she looks young, and she doesn't look like April O'Neil. So I'm just curious to see what they do with her character and who her character is.
Yeah, April is another one who's gone through a lot of shifts here. I noticed in this picture of this new April, I couldn't tell if she was supposed to be small, like a child, like this other April we've just had, or if she's an adult. I hope she's an adult. Like, I didn't see the CG cartoon yet. I'm getting there. But so I don't know what kid April is like. Is it good?
I'm really, I really enjoy it. I'm rewatching it right now, but I really enjoyed it, and I'm enjoying it again. I think it loses steam in the last couple seasons, but the first season is a ton of fun. I'll say that.
Oh, I can't. Sidebar, by the way, that show is ridiculously hard to get a hold of. Like, there's 5 seasons, only the first 2 are on DVD, and even Netflix only has the first 2. It's like insane. Yeah. When I went on, I saw it on Netflix. I got so excited. I clicked it. 2 seasons. I'm like, no, that's a lie. But so I don't know. Like, Nickelodeon, if you put something in front of your consumer, they will consume it. That's a little tip. But back to April. I think the shift to African American is cool. I hope the design of the character is like appealing looking. Like, it's got the yellow, which I like. I hope she is, fun, April, because April has been a lot of fun. In the 80s cartoon, she was a riot. I love how she kept just getting in over her head, and she's just anything for a story, and she will put herself in danger. Half the time it's like she was like the opposite Lois Lane. Like, she wasn't getting kidnapped by the bad guys. She was like plowing headfirst and being like, "Hey, I'm gonna get a story," and then it's her own fault, which I always found really funny. The April in the 2000s cartoon was a little weird. She was very sort of blasé about everything, and the design of her I found it was super, like, it didn't make any sense. Like, the first time you see her, she's in like this tiny t-shirt that's like 4 sizes too small for her, and then a pair of pants that are like 5 sizes too big, and neither of them are yellow. So I'm like, who designed this girl? But I like
sign of the times.
I know, right? But I like what I see of this new one. I think it's cool. The actress, I don't remember her name, but she, I saw the picture of her there. She's a pretty lady. I think it'll be a fun April. Like, I just hope she's adult.
Yeah, she doesn't look like an, but yeah, I can't tell you. I'm curious to see. I think the voice cast for this one is phenomenal, but like we said, Backlash of the Turtles, they've weathered that storm before. This is just something that I think if you are a diehard hardcore Turtles fan and you're gonna watch this show religiously and hate on it for no reason other than they look different and sound different, maybe we need to rethink our priorities, because look, we talked about this a couple weeks ago too, is if they make a new movie in the next 5 years, this cartoon series might have very little to no effect on that film. And I said this last week, I think it was on the show, or a couple weeks ago. The problem, and I think Laird said this as well, is the problem with Ninja Turtles is the bulk of the fans, the Driving Force fans, grew up with the 80s cartoon. And in the 80s cartoon, the Shredder is the only villain. Because I posed the question last week, if Baron Draxum is a great villain, will we see him in a movie? My guess is not for a long, long time, because he won't be the villain in the first new movie. He probably won't be in the second one. Maybe if you get to a third one, he could show up at some point. But you're always going to start with the Shredder. Probably rightfully so. If you're going to reboot it, the Shredder, what the Bay movies got wrong was the Shredder and who the Shredder was to the Turtles, because he's like his connection to the Turtles I thought was very, very much mismanaged. Half because of the way they reconfigured it after the online harassment that they got, and half of it because they just did it wrong. They did it wrong. Splinter was completely wrong. No matter how Shredder's portrayed in that, Splinter gets a shaft. But that's something that I think is very important. Anything else you want to say on the backlash of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles?
Well, it's like we say on Rebel Scum podcast, like same goes for Star Wars. Nobody hates a property as much as its biggest fans. And to hate on Rise of the TMNT without even giving it a chance, I mean, we have to understand that our own prejudices are inherently going to get in the way. We just have to muscle past them. Like when I sat down and started watching the 2003 Turtles, on the first episode, I'm sitting there like, man, this ain't my Turtles, man. The 80s show is where my groove's at. But, as I'm watching the show, I'm like, okay, you know what? To be 100% honest, as much as I love the 80s show with all my heart, it is not the best quality show. I mean, there are errors up the ass. There are some random episodes, like dozens of random episodes, where it's just different people doing the voices just because of reasons. I mean, season 3 of that show had 47 episodes. So, like, quality control probably went out the window in terms of quantity control. So, going from that,
toy, they're like, make more of these.
Exactly. So, to go from that, which as much as I love it is a hot mess, to a much more streamlined show like the 2003 one, it's like, you know what, the quality is here and I gotta live with that. That doesn't mean the old show is gonna go away, and once I think we learn to get past that initial reflex, we can have a lot of fun with a lot of different Turtles.
Exactly. So let's, and plus we are, 5, 6, 7 months out from the premiere of Rise of the TMNT. So let's just hold back. Anybody that has a problem with April's ethnicity, Andre, the Black Nerd, said it the best when he says, all I gotta say to you is Baxter in the 80s. It's fair enough. You can't argue.
That's so true. That is so true.
Yeah, you can. One more thing I want to talk about is this guy right here. His name is Kirby. If you don't know Kirby, you're not alone. Andrew, do you know who this guy is?
Is he the artist who's got the magic thing on his pencil and he draws stuff that comes to life?
That is another Kirby. Of course, this is the proposed fifth Ninja Turtle was Kirby, named after Jack Kirby, who you might recognize from comic books and such. This was Eastman and Laird's creation, I believe. They came up with Kirby for the fourth live-action Ninja Turtles film. If there was to be one, it was going to be called TMNT, The Next Mutation, and the fifth turtle was going to be this guy right here, depicted. Sometimes he's depicted in a white bandana, sometimes in a purple one, a little bit of shade different from Donatello's, and sometimes in a black bandana, which is kind of cool. So this was the idea. They wanted to have him in there, but of course the project got shelved, and then when Saban came along to make the live action show, it's pretty much the same title as that fourth movie, obviously. And if you've seen the series, you know it's an extension of the movies. It kind of works canonically with the first three films, except Shredder comes back. But you got to kind of avoid that. And then, of course, Venus de Milo makes an appearance in that. Andrew, you said you have no problem with a female Ninja Turtle. This is the fifth turtle that we got. Eastman and Laird absolutely hate hate Venus de Milo. So originally it was supposed to be this Kirby character in TMNT The Next Mutation Saban show, but Saban said, no, it's got to be a female, and that's how we got Venus de Milo. And since that day, Eastman and Laird, when Laird still owned most of the Turtle franchise, the rule for the TMNT movie was no mention of Venus, no jokes of Venus. You ignore that completely. And I believe Eastman's words were, no girl turtles, were actually his words. You can't get away with that 18 years later, but back then, that was no problem. And that's how they felt about that. But Kirby never got to see the light of day, and Venus de Milo can only live on in our hearts. Ninja Turtles, man. They can't go away. You can't bring them a good turtle down, as they say, or as I say. Andrew, would you have liked to have seen a fourth Ninja Turtle movie featuring a fifth turtle named Kirby?
I love that. You painted such a cool visual picture in my head of a fifth turtle with a white bandana. I think that sounds so cool. The name would take some getting used to because everybody's got these fancy schmancy Renaissance Italian names, and he's just like Kirby.
And he's Venus is after a statue, so they still kind of change her a little bit too.
Yeah, that's true. They're transitioning away from that. But I think that would have been a lot of fun to see. I think that's something they could experiment with in a cartoon. That, like I said, these different ideas. Throw out a cartoon with fifth turtles, see what happens. I think a neat change I would like to see. And all you have to do is change one word in the title, but it opens a whole lot of possibilities. Is adult Mutant Ninja Turtles. What's it like 10, 15 years after the fact? Maybe Splinter's gone. What's left? What's life like for them now?
Well, I don't know if you remember, but the Michael Bay Turtles was originally just going to be titled Ninja Turtles, and they were going to come from space. And this is why April Neil has that line, no, they're turtles. That would be stupid when Whoopi Goldberg says, are they aliens? And they were supposed to be aliens from space, and that got changed because I don't know if it's credit or not, but Platinum Dunes, man, they listened to the internet on this one. They were like EA with Battlefront. They listened to the fans, and I think they should not have when it came to Shredder. I think they should have stuck to their guns, because shoehorning in the Shredder character when it was clearly supposed to be Eric Sachs in that movie, it was clearly him, and just shoehorning in another guy to appease the fans was not helpful to that film, I would say. And I like the movie, but it would have been a lot stronger had that been the case. But also, like I said, they really missed out on the Splinter Shredder motion. Yeah,
100.
When they're fighting in the sewer, there's no, I don't care. It's so empty.
Exactly.
But in the original live action movie where they're puppets, it's like it's so much more weight, and you feel so much more emotion because you know the history and the backstory of these two characters, and it's such an intriguing part of Ninja Turtles, and they just we don't need that. Even if they made Shredder an American, they still could have had something with him there, but they decided not to. Tyler Perry is still the best Baxter Stockman we will ever get. That is my favorite part. All right, let's wrap this one up. We got so much more to talk about in the next couple of weeks. We do this every Thursday as Teenage Mutant Ninja Thursdays right here on Digital Charcuterie. I'm James Rosile. Joining me is Andrew Fantasia. You should check out his YouTube channel, which is called Andrew Fantasia. He's also a contributor at the Rebel Scum podcast YouTube channel. Andrew, thank you so much for joining me here today.
Thank you. Cowabunga.
Cowabunga. All right, guys, that's all for now. And as Andrew just said, Casablanca